Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. This is part one of a two-part interview with convicted serial killer and self-proclaimed contract killer Samuel Amador Jr., known as Sammy. Sammy is convicted of killing Pedro Rios, Joseph Russell, Michael Wilson, and George Renteria. The murders of Rios, Russell, and Wilson were committed with a shotgun, a 9mm, and a .380. The murder of Renteria was a strangulation in prison with a bedsheet in his prison cell. Sammy is from San Bernardino, California. At an early age, he began running the streets, living a life of crime. Sammy speaks about his childhood, killing and experimenting with animals at a young age. He breaks down the murders and the lifestyle of a contract killer. Here's part one of my interview with serial killer Samuel Amador.
This is Global Tellink. You have a prepaid call from
Samuel Amador,
an inmate at the California State Prison, San Quentin, California.
My name's Samuel Jr. Amador. I'm from the city of San Bernardino. I'm currently housed in San Quentin State Prison.
Can you recall any positive memories that stick out to you from your childhood?
Now, if you consider getting some what is it, coal rocks for Christmas? I do not. No, I used to get coal rocks every year for Christmas.
Can you think about any negative memories that stick out to you from your childhood?
That's all pretty much that there is. I grew up basically in San Bernardino and never pretty much had a home. Grew up pretty much in motel rooms. Every motel room up on Mount Vernon, which Mount Vernon was like one of the main strips in San Bernardino in the 90s. So there's probably about 30 motels right there. So my whole childhood was growing up in those motels. Easter, Christmas, there was none of that. It was pretty much we were welfare babies. My parents were on welfare, so everything was pretty small, you know. Every day was a struggle. It wasn't easy.
Did you suffer any type of childhood abuse or trauma growing up?
No, well, as for like sexual abuse and anything like that, no. But as for, the school of hard knocks, I guess you can consider that as psychological abuse. Because pretty much it's you got to learn to be tough. You know, you can't be a sissy because the first person to want to walk away from a fight is usually the one who gets the black eye. So I was taught always to go full throttle ahead. So I got scars all over my body. I've been hit in the head with a bat, stabbed in the stomach, shot in the leg. You know, so you name it, it's been jumped before. So in those ways, angles of it, you know, are my pretty much my growing up memories.
So as a child, what was your behavior like growing up?
When I was younger, I would say like 10, 11, 12, 9. I can remember I used to like killing animals a lot. Like I'd get stray dogs, cats, birds, and the birds I'd shoot with BB guns, and when they would fall down from the tree or whatever, I would like to dissect them and be real curious like that. The cats would be around. I used to like string them up and put them on fences. And the same thing with the dogs. Or like I used to have a gun at a young age. I was 12 years old, so I used to just walk around and through the alleys and kill animals. So I guess that would be. Now I look back at it, I guess those were bad signs.
What would be the method of killing them? Would you just like strangle them or stab them or shoot them, or how would you kill them?
Just to do it, I guess I was curious to take life. At a young age, I was curious to take life, what it felt like. I pretty much started with the birds, and then started with the cats and then the dogs, and it was just a thrill of just death in itself. You know, it didn't give me no sexual drive or nothing like that. It just gave me like wow, like trip out, like you know when you win a reward and that feeling you get, that would be like the feeling I would get every time when I was killing animals. And it didn't matter. I would string them up, shoot them. I would hang them, shoot them. A couple times I would stab a couple cats. A couple dozen of them actually, cutting them open. So.
Did your parents ever know of that kind of behavior, or did you keep it like hidden away from your life?
I just keep it away. My parents weren't really too much around. My parents were heroin addicts, so they were really out on the grind more or less, stealing, boosting stores. So they were really never home. I had two sisters, which I was the youngest, we're all a year apart. My sister Sonia is the oldest, and my sister Lisa, rest in peace, she was the middle age, and then I was the baby one. So pretty much we fend for ourselves in the motel room while the parents are gone. So they weren't really aware of too much what I was doing.
I'm going to wait for this jet to go by because it's making a lot of noise. It should be gone in like a few seconds.
Do your thing. Do your thing.
I don't know if you can hear it, but there's the Air Force base like 10 miles away from here, and they're always running operations.
That would be interesting. I remember growing up around train tracks, and every time a train would go by, the whole house used to shake, you know, when I would be at like a friend's house.
Right, yeah, I used to live by a train track too, and every night I would hear it, and it would just be annoying because it'd be like midnight, and it'd be like, choo, choo.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a few friends who actually, their parents felt sorry for us, so they would actually take me in, you know, periodically. So, close to
oh, really?
Having a house. Yeah.
All right, I think it's gone now. So what was your behavior like in school, primarily in your middle school and high school years?
I never really went to school, to be honest with you. Elementary, I can remember going vaguely, because certain sides of the Mount Vernon, there's certain sides. If you be on the right side, you go to a certain district on that side. If you go on the left side, you go to a different district. And it don't make no sense because the school would be closer, but if you're on a certain side of the street, you'd have to go like blocks and blocks up. So since my parents would get in trouble paying the rent on time, we would have to get kicked out of that motel room. So I'd go in school, get enrolled in that.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Be enrolled in this school for like a couple months, and then we have to move to the other motel room because we got evicted from the other motel room from being behind the rent. So then a lot of times I wouldn't get enrolled, and then a lot of times even when I did, it was just ditching. I never got past like 6th grade.
So is that when you dropped out with 6th grade?
6th grade, yeah, and pretty much they like bumped my grades up because of my age. Basically, they were like, "Oh yeah, you're way behind." I'd be in special ed classes a lot.
Were you ever diagnosed with any mental illnesses as a child or as an adult, for that matter?
No, not growing up. It was kind of like a sign of a weakness to be diagnosed with that, you know. So like my parents, they obviously had issues, both of them, because later on they got diagnosed and they both used to hear voices and they used to have a lot of schizophrenia going on. I remember a lot of times my dad used to get up in the middle of the night chasing cars down the street talking about he could read their minds and shit. So I got my issues. Oh, absolutely. I got my issues later on as I observed it, you know. But back then, no, I wasn't diagnosed with nothing.
So did dropping out of school contribute to any criminal activity?
I think it did, based on there was a lot of free time on my hands, and obviously there was no job future ahead. So the crowd I was around, pretty much, there was a crowd from the early ages, from 10, 11, 12. 12 was my first crime that I committed, was a robbery, and I got arrested for it. But in between those age groups, pretty much it was just hustling. It was just hustling out on the grind every day, doing burglaries, home invasions, and stealing cars and shit.
How many times were you arrested and or convicted as a juvenile?
I want to say I was side released at age 12 for a robbery to my parents, and then throughout 13, 14, 15, I was in placements off and on. Like the court would order me to go to like these group homes. So I'd go to these group homes for, I don't know, like a couple of weeks, and I'd AWOL from those, run the streets, get high, run around, gangbang, hustle, make money, and it'd just be a cycle till I was like 15. And when I was 15, I got convicted of stealing like a ring of cars from like...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They sent me off to YA from there.
So you said you gangbanged. What gang were you a part of growing up?
I was a part of a Westside Verdugo Little Counts gang in the city of San Bernardino in the Inland Empire.
How did you get into that type of lifestyle?
being basically around that, when you did school, I mean, obviously you have a lot of free time with a lot of fuck-ups running around and doing the same thing. So I think that was the encouraging part. And obviously I was short on family members, especially boys in my family. So I guess it was the acceptance of feeling welcome as a family from someone. So it kind of influenced me and directed me in that direction into the gangs.
So after turning 18 years old, did you engage in any type of criminal activity prior to the cases you're serving time for now?
Well, okay, from 15 till I was 22, I was confined. So what ended up happening was when I was 15, I got ordered from AWOLing from the placements. They ordered me to go to YA Youth Authority. So when I was 15, when I was in junior hall, I ended up going to the Youth Authority for 3 years. So during that time when I was in the Youth Authority, I was stabbing people, beating people up, doing, you name it, I was doing it. So when I turned 18, which is 98, I ended up picking up a stabbing and assault on an inmate there. So they gave me 4 years in the stripe, and then they sent me out to prison straight from YA. So as soon as I turned 18, basically I ended up hitting prison, hitting the big house.
So what was that like as a fresh adult in a prison with a bunch of grown men, murderers, rapists, so on and so forth?
Well, it wasn't back then, and nor is it now. Like the yards I would be on, there would, like rapists wouldn't be allowed, gays wouldn't be allowed. It was a very strict policy, on how we would move and who would be around. So basically, people like that would have what you would call green lights. So they would be like assaulted off the yard, So since I was a kid, I was the one doing a lot of those assaults. But as for being around a bunch of murderers, being Mexican and whites have a different policy than blacks. So basically, if you fuck with one, you fuck with all of us, So it was kind of you're protected under the umbrella of Southern Hispanics. For me, it was Southern Hispanics. So I wouldn't have to worry about being bullied or molested in prison because pretty much we stayed united together.
Let's talk about the cases that you're in prison for now. I want to talk about each case in chronological order. First, starting with the September 1st, 2004 homicide of Michael Darnell Wilson. Can you walk me through everything that went on this day and what the aftermath was that day?
Pretty much what it is I get hired to kill people. At that time, I don't do it anymore, but at those times, that's what I was. I was a hitman. So therefore, when Michael Wilson was brought to my attention by what we call a handler, that he was basically snitching on some high rollers, basically people selling drugs, selling guns, doing anything illegal on the streets, making a whole lot of money. So he was snitching. He was an informant. So basically, he had to go. So they told me basically for $30,000, he was taken care of. I would be taken care of with the $30,000. So that was the story with the Michael Wilson. And basically, I had to follow him around for a little bit. They briefed me basically on his movements in San Bernardino, his family's movements, the cars he drove. Basically, they formatted a formula already, a blueprint in the sense of his movements. So I can basically go off of that. So I caught him on September 1st. I ended up rigging his car, ended up cutting a brake fluid. So he ended up pulling over. After he left his house, he ended up pulling over, I want to say. He had to use the emergency brake or whatever, a couple blocks from where he was at. And when he started walking, I pretty much walked up behind him. And I said, hey, man, and he's a pretty tall dude. He's like 6-something, So and I'm a short guy. I'm like 5'6", so I had to make sure when I get up on this dude, because you don't know what he has, If he's out there snitching, usually these guys are scared for their life, so they carry guns in themselves.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
At a 380, the 380 can consist, it can also shoot 9mm bullets, so what I had was hollow point 9mm bullets. And I walked up to him and basically, hey man, what's going on? And I act like I didn't know him or whatever case, so when he had turned around, that's when I just shot him in the throat. And he just fell to the floor. That was the end of Mr. Wilson's life.
So how did you feel during the commission of the crime as you broke in and as you shot him? Like, what was going through your mind?
When I've learned growing up, when you're doing something, you have to detach yourself from what you're doing. You can't come attached to it, because if you come emotionally attached to something, then it strays your concentration and your focus away from what you're doing, and that could be deadly. So to me, I see the target, I understand the target, and I know what I can do and what I can't do at the time. You know, I understand my surroundings, what they are, you know, all the way down to if it's raining, you know, I was making sure I was checking the newspapers, the weather channels, you know, to make sure everything had to be very precise. It had to be perfect, you know, to make sure this guy didn't get away, because it can get deadly for me if I was to let that man live, and he would have the heads up on his life, you know. So I really didn't have, I was already at the point, in that point in my life, where it didn't really give me too much of the thrill as the animals did. It became normal.
So what was the first thing you did after that crime took place with Wilson?
So basically, well, before he comes back and everything, so basically that's where he had to go. I really wasn't feeling anything. To me, it was a norm. It was normal now. You see what I'm saying? When you're killing people for money and you don't get attached to it anymore, it becomes normal. It becomes part of your life.
Let me think. Okay, at that time I was staying in Riverside, so pretty much I just got married. I just got married at that time, so I think I went home to my wife and just basically had some wild ass sex. It was like the norm, you know, like killing people. After you do it so many times, and you lose this, I don't know, this sense of thrive, you know. It's just becomes business. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, you know. Was that word empathy or something like that? Empathy, like really you don't have nothing there, like the emotion or whatever.
Right. The lack of emotion and empathy.
Right. There you go.
So almost 2 years would go by until you would kill again. What were you doing from September 2004 through May 2006 before the murder of Pedro Rios?
Okay, September 30th, I was picked up because at that time I was selling drugs and stuff, so I would buy like a lot of guns from the street. So when I buy my guns, I mean, if I wasn't in an area where they were adults and I could test them on somebody, basically I would fire them in the air, take it for a ride and fire them in the air, and basically that's what I did over there in Riverside. And then the cops ended up getting called, so they ended up busting me for a firearm and ammunition. So I did 18 months from 2004. I did 3 years and a half, so they sent me to High Desert State Prison. And out of the 3 years and a half for the guns and ammunition, I did 18 months, and then I got out. And that should carry us off to, 2006, right? 18 months from September, 4, 5, 6.
So you were locked up from September 30th up until May 2006?
Yes, from September 30th till 2006. I want to say from 18 months from September, October, November, December, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So would that be like March? I got a March, so I was out about 2 months before I ended up killing the Pedro Rios.
Okay, so walk me through everything that transpired with Pedro Rios. What happened? Why did it happen? And what followed?
What ended up happening was, again, you know, my contact ended up getting at me, which is my handler, and he was telling me
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
This contract on Rios. So I was like, well, what's going on? You know, so he basically told me dude was borrowing a bunch of crates of guns, handguns, semi-automatic rifles, machine guns, body armors, and most importantly, he broke his word to some high power people. You know, I guess he had his little crew of people where they would rob a thing like banks, do home invasions and shit like that. So he needed artillery, so he borrowed a bunch of this artillery and pretty much thought he was untouchable. and was like, fuck paying everybody back for all these guns and everything he bought to make money off of. And that's where I came in the picture, and they told me, well, nigga, we'll give you $15,000, you take him down. So basically, I ended up knowing his family. So I ended up going to his family's house. They stay off of a J and 15th in the city of San Bernardino. So I ended up going over there. Hey, man, how you doing? You guys want to drink a beer? You know, played stupid a little bit. Ran into Pedro Rios, met him, and started kicking back with him, scheduled a date, which is, I don't know, couple, I want to say about a month. About a month, I just kicked it with him a little bit, you know, got his little rhythm, how he moved, who he fucked with, you know, and got the little blueprint on him. Finally got him by the railroad tracks, because we were talking about railroad tracks. Caught him by the railroad tracks off the J, a couple blocks up from the street. Shot him execution style in the head two times. 2 blocks up the street from his house. And his family knew that I did it, but obviously, I mean, they weren't pushing a hard line like that. He was like their main hard line pusher that was actually killing people, hurting people. And so him being knocked down, you know, there wasn't nobody else ready to retaliate for him. So I got paid $15,000 for him.
So when it comes to taking money for a hit, so do they put money down before getting the kill, or do they wait to pay you when the job is done? Like, how does that work?
It would be like this. Okay, say if me and you knew each other for many years, and you're a very well trustworthy person. So you're a three-way person. So the people, you would vouch for whoever you're getting these contracts from, and you would know the gunners. So even if that tab wasn't paid to you, to give to me, you would have enough money to pay me to make sure that I got what I got, and then I feel sorry for the guy who burned us. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't want to burn people like that. So that would go to the three-way person to give to me.
So you would go almost another year without killing. What were you doing with your life then before Joseph Russell?
I think I met a couple of females. You know, I was trying to like do my thing, try to do a family thing at that time. I met some broad. She was in the church, try to settle my life down a little bit. Try to see, I never really experienced what it felt like to be a family man, you know, to come home, put a Christmas tree up. Basically, the responsibilities that a normal person has. You know, I never experienced that, and I always wanted to experience that. So with this girl, I figured she was the right person, so I kind of sat back, pushed away from everything for a little bit, until basically it was the Joseph Russell was a personal. That wasn't for money or nothing. What it was a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, which was a female. She comes to me crying one day. And this was like in the beginning of January of 2007, and she tells me, hey man, my 13-year-old daughter, I think she's being raped by this guy, and I don't know what's going on. When I'm doing the laundry, she got blood in her panties, and it's not the time of the month for her to be on her period. This guy's been coming around aggressively late at night. She don't look like she wants to be around him. So there were signs of what I consider what they call gorilla pimping. When these dudes would get like young girls, and scare them to death because they don't got nobody, no brothers, uncles to back them up. So they'll force them into basically human trafficking. You see what I'm saying? So I don't.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Especially it being a young female, that's just no. I don't talk to those people. I don't get along with those people. So I was upset, especially that being a friend of mine's daughter. So I sat her daughter down and I told her, look, man, here's the situation. Is this happening? Because somebody's life's on the line here. You know, is this? Don't worry about the relationships I have with men, and you know, she tried to protect him, but I could see the terror that he already terrorized her mind to don't ever say nothing. You know, I unfortunately got to see that look in a lot of females' eyes and sometimes guys' eyes when you're running the street. So you sense it, you know, when when you're about that lifestyle, you can sense things. You know, you don't gotta be, you don't gotta actually, you don't gotta actually be taught it. No, it's okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, they're coming and trying to do my painkillers right now. So basically, you know, after I interrogated her and she basically gave me the stiff arm, but I could see the terror in her, I went and pulled that dude aside, you know. So, hey, man, check it out. Introduced myself. So, look, here's what it is, you know. If you're doing this, then knock it off, because next time you see me, it's not going to be friendly. Oh, no, man, and, you know, I just try to help her out, you know, and, well, you need to stop helping her out, because the mom don't like it. She's a little girl, so her parents don't want her to be doing that, so don't be doing it around her. So he gave me his word he'd be away from her. Now, the allegations was, you know, that he was raping her and forcing her into human trafficking. So he gave me his word that he was going to be around her, and I already explained to him the seriousness of it. He told me that he was going to be around him. About a week later, I'm sitting up the street with a shotgun in my fucking lap and talking to a few dudes, and he goes by, and he has his little girl with him in the car. And it was already brought to my attention the night before that he was caught in somebody's backyard with the windows of the van, because it was a van that he got murdered in. That was the kind of van that dude drives. Like they were having sex, you know, in the van. You know, it was real musty in there. The windows were sweating, you know, and by the time they came out of the van, I guess the little girl was all sweaty, and he was, you know. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what was going on. So basically, when I ended up running into him, and then she was in the car, I drove up to the car and told that dude, I was on the passenger seat, actually. I had my friend drive to the car and told him, hey, man, look it. Drop her off, let me talk to you. He speeds off. I guess she finally fucking jumps out of the car. So as soon as she jumped out of the van, he went around by the railroad tracks were, and he stopped his car. So when I'm on the passenger seat, I don't got nothing to say no more. I already said what I did. You're with this girl already, you know, so any allegations now, they were true to me, you know. So we pulled up right on the side of him. My window was down, his window was down. I blew his fucking face off with a gauge with a shotgun.
And what was the aftermath of that homicide? Like, what happened after that?
They ended up blocking off. That was like real big. They ended up blocking off that street where you can't drive down the street no more. Because it was like it was in 13th in J Street, San Bernardino. So there was like a little curve where the railroad tracks were, so they shut that off, where you couldn't go over there no more in that year. Pretty much for me, it was just whatever, you know. I was taking care of what needed to be taken care of, you know. If I was that girl's father or any man that didn't give a fuck, you know, and you're living that lifestyle and you're seeing that kind of activity go on around you, you don't condone it, and so you deal with it very, 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 very violent. You know, that's, a lot of times that's the only way certain people understand that. I sat down and talked to him. He didn't heed what I was telling him, the seriousness of it. Shame on him, you know. So he learned the hard way.
So did you think that you would keep getting away with the homicides and continue to kill until you were apprehended?
I'm a firm believer that if you keep doing something you're not supposed to be doing, eventually you're going to get caught. And every time when I committed a murder, I knew what I was doing. I knew there was a right and there was a wrong. So me doing that consecutively.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So that's when I ended up getting arrested for the Alex Marty in August of 2013. That's the one where it all bit me in the ass and it all snowballed from there.
That was part one of my interview with serial killer Samuel Amador. For ad-free episodes and extra content, head on over to patreon.com/unforbidden truth. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.
Unforbidden.